Okay, wait for like 10 seconds.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Wiginton at AFL, and wanted to welcome you to an exciting webinar that we put together today. And I've got a good friend of mine, Subbu Meiyappan, here today, who's the CEO of ECSite, and he's going to bring to us an exciting just collection of technology that he is proud to share and that we're proud to talk about as a user of this. So I just wanted to welcome all of you and thank you for taking the time to attend today. And we're going to focus on the DAS space and how basically advanced technology platforms like what ECSite has developed have really helped us in what we see as a game changer in our efficiency and the way that we can build sites. So excited to go through that. Just as a little bit of prep on how the webinar is going to flow, I'm going to just introduce you to Subbu in just a second and a little bit about our experience, and then going to turn it over to him. He's going to lead this presentation. And throughout the presentation, we're going to attempt to do some interactive polls. So you'll see that we encourage your participation as much as possible. In fact, I believe Subbu and his team are going to do some random giveaways afterwards of people that participated in the polls for some gift cards to Starbucks. So we encourage you to do that. And then after we're finished with the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session. So during this time, if you have a question that pops up or you have something already prepared, if you can use the question section of your webinar, that you can go ahead and fill out the questions, and Subbu and his team will do their best to answer them, or if you need direct something to me, I'll do my best as well. So at the end of the presentation, if we get to all the questions, that'll be great. If not, we'll do our best to get them to you, and there will be a recording available that'll be sent out to you after we're finished. So I think that's all of the items I had to cover. So I want to concentrate on Subbu and his team. So officially welcome to the webinar, Subbu. And I appreciate.
Thank you, David. Thanks for hosting us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate your company and I appreciate what you bring to our business at AFL every day. So just a little bit about Subbu. So Subbu has been in the wireless industry for over 25 years, and he's had a lot of positions with companies like Cisco and Philips and Qualcomm. And on the side, he developed quite a extensive portfolio of technology advancements and has, I believe, over 30 patents, right, in this field, right, both in the US and international. And a few years ago, he helped develop a company called NextNav, which used a beacon-like GPS technology and was finding its way into 911 and other applications. And I believe it was actually adopted by NASA. So very successful. And then Subbu decided to launch ECSite, and that's where we met a few years ago. And it's just been exciting to grow this partnership and how ECSite has helped transform our daily business in the integrator space of being able to become more efficient, to be able to check on our folks remotely without having to travel, to be able to deliver a better package to our customers. So it's all made possible by Subbu and his team. So, and I think you're well qualified to speak today. So Subbu, I just wanted to turn it over to you now and let you get started.
Yeah. Hi, thank you, David. Thanks a lot for that very generous and kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here. We've been very fortunate to work with David and his team at OTS, now part of AFL. Have been working with them for the last 2 years, and have really enjoyed the experience working with your team, David. And thank you the entire AFL team for hosting this webinar for us today. Right, so and thank you for all attending today's webinar, taking time off your busy schedule. I know everybody's zoomed out, but I think I'll keep it interesting. There's a lot of good information from this webinar. I hope that you can gather. Right, well, so with that, mostly we're going to be talking about DAS today, and I'm assuming everybody knows what a DAS, distributed antenna system, is, mostly on the in-building and venue side. So we will, I won't go into what a DAS is, but what is, mostly what about what challenges are people facing with DAS systems today, right? If I can, there you go, right? So in terms of agenda, we will go over the deployment challenges that we have with the DAS builds today, and how can we solve these challenges with, what does the solution space look like, and then we bring in ECSite to say, how we what we do to solve at least a good portion of these challenges. There is a demo as well that I've planned, and then David will talk about some of the case studies with AFL. Okay, so in terms of deployment configurations, the configurations grow quite a bit as we look at where we are headed, but typically DAS is deployed either for coverage or capacity. So you have passive solutions or radio to the edge solutions based on who's deploying. There's DRAN architectures, there's radio to the edge like the Ericsson dot systems. Then there's private LTE that is all, the radio is integrated with CBRS, and private 5G is also coming up. And then we also have active fiber to the edge DAS systems. There's neutral host systems, there's DRAN systems. So there's many different topologies that people deploy today, and it's based on the application. As they say, there could be as many configurations as RF engineers in the industry. So the configurations keep changing, and we all need to be on top of all these different configurations and what makes sense. So with that, I have a little poll that I'd like to put up right now, which is, so the poll should be live. It should take about 15 seconds. If you could fill out that poll. Yeah, there's some prizes at the end of the session for filling out the poll, so please do fill them out. You can check as many boxes as you'd like. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll right now and move to the next slide. Okay, and let's see. So here is some interesting what all people do in the DAS world today and what's coming tomorrow, right? And so that's what this does. So we have 5G. There's a lot of activity on 5G with millimeter wave, O-RAN, and I've highlighted some elements where we're either currently, we already have some millimeter wave test capabilities. We're also working on some O-RAN and ECSite test capabilities. There's also spectrum sharing with CBRS and LAA. There's cognitive radio, self-organizing network, and you also have dynamic spectrum sharing. And there's all kinds of new frequencies that are coming up with FirstNet on the public safety side, and then you have the 600 megahertz. And recently, the C-band auction concluded with, they say there's 81 billion reasons why we should be focused on C-band. That's how much money that's been spent on the C-band. And there's all different kinds of techniques that people use with the digital electricity, underseat antennas, matching antennas, if you're familiar with them, software-defined radios. There's some IoT deployments, and there's a growing list of OEMs and products that are coming out. So we need to be on top of all of these. Right? There's a myriad of acronyms here for all of us to be familiar with as we look at why DAS is becoming more and more challenging. And this pie chart essentially shows, with all the designs that we have processed last year, where do we see most of the parts coming from, right? And so those are all available in our dashboard for our customers. And then the testing process that people are worried about, that today is not tracked very well, is very siloed. Is let's say go capture, deliver closeouts, and go. There's tons of testing that is involved. So there's more and more of these that is coming up as the technology evolves and as the techniques evolve. If you can make some sense out of every single bullet in this, you are a DAS guru, and I bow to you. But there's not everybody who's an expert at all of this. So how do we, as things grow and things become available, how do we get better at this, and how do we make our process very, very efficient, right? And I think with that, do I have another poll? Yeah, so then there's another poll, please, for the another 30 seconds, which talks mostly about what technologies do you plan to deploy in the next 12 to 18 months. Sometimes you may not have the technologies that you're deploying because the poll only allows us to do 5 questions. So please go ahead and launch that. All right, so the poll should be available. That's great. Okay, all right, so I will close this poll as well. Right, so there's the results of the poll here. That yeah, I shared the poll results with all of you as well. Right now, so with all of these technologies, techniques, and task configurations that we have, there's more, all this mumbo jumbo is there, and how do you keep up with all of this, right? There's with all the technologies that are coming, and a study by the Department of Energy on human performance improvement essentially said that in any industry for that matter, not just for industrial automation or anything like that, there's a lot of procedural problems. There's human errors definitely there. Is automation the only solution? Not necessarily. Human error does play a big factor, but there's a lot of procedural problems. We don't train our technicians enough. There's oversight on the top of on the management side. So most of these will they at least in that paper they say that these are organizational deficiencies that we have, and we need to figure out a way to look at this as a big picture, a holistic picture for us to be able to get better at whatever we're doing, right? So if I were to summarize the challenges, we have technology challenges, right? So we have to understand what this technology does, and a ton of time we see design changes, right? So we've done over about 150 DAS projects. I would say about 30% of them have had at least 5 or more substantial design changes. And when I say not just moving a remote here or there or changing cables, changing jumper types, just when we get the 70% or 80% design, they say it's ready to go and the contract has been awarded, to when it finally gets implemented. And even during the implementation phase, also we see changes. So the design changes have to be managed, and a lot of that comes down to what David was talking about, is getting the designs right, which means that you need to do more site visits, and how can that be? And those become expensive sometimes. So how can that be avoided, right? And then on the data side, today, we live in 2020, 2021. I want to forget 2020. So on 2021. We still have spreadsheets and PDF documents, and that's how data is being exchanged. And the data is the reconciliation of the data is very distributed. And what I mean by that is the CM verifies some of the data, the RF engineers verify some of the data, and there's not a unified place, but it's all the same data that gets collected. There's not a unified way of reconciling this data, so which is very important in my opinion. And the other thing that we find that's very common is that there are no test standards even across 3POs. There's guidelines, but things are very specific to a site. And again, there's as many test standards and closeout requirements as there are RF engineers or system engineers in an organization. So this standardization is very important. And I also see, again, going back to this data, I see that the data today has a very sad ending, right? In the sense that you get the data for commissioning, and after that, the data pretty much all the collected data dies. In the sense, there's no, if there is failures, do they go to root cause? So the data doesn't live as an active resource for everybody to access. So these are some of the challenges that we see. And as you know, COVID taught us site visits have become very challenging and expensive. But at the same time, site visits are essential for us to do good designs. So how can we guide that? And most of the testing today is manual. There is some siloed automation. Every instrument vendor provides their way of automating things. And everything is being reviewed manually as well. I wouldn't call myself lazy, but I get tired of looking at details over and over again. And I'm not sure how the industry does. If you go to a venue where there's thousands of cables and test results, how do they review this? And that becomes a big challenge. The human fatigue catches up in general, right? And there's no real-time visibility. There's people do project tracking today, and when they do project tracking, what they do is that they call on a Friday night to find out what's happening, so that they can report to the upper management on Monday morning. And people, there are apps that do project tracking, but not at the level where all the testing is tracked, everything is tracked from end to end. So that's not available today. And I can't emphasize enough about training our techs in the field. There's nothing that is going to substitute the training that we'll have to do, right? And I also find that as-builds are not done well. Most people are ready to close out the project, but if we have to redo some pieces of it, then the as-built information is not available. And typically, there's software tools available, but in order for you to bring those software tools in, you will need an IT staff in place to be able to manage that entire software tools, even if you're not building them. So that also becomes a very expensive proposition. So these are some of the challenges that we've seen, and we'll look into the solution space. So I'm going to launch one more poll. Here, this is the third poll. Please take 30 seconds to do the poll, please. Yeah. Okay.
Subbu, we need an all of the above on this one.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. So, the other kicker that we all get is the challenge with the project management is that your boss always wants the time. They want it at the lowest cost, the best quality possible, and the fastest time that you could do this, right? But project management principles say that you end up having to pick any two, but there are ways in which you can get to a good balance on how to achieve this, right? So with all these challenges of technology, training, site visits, and there's a lot of manual activity that's involved, what does the solution space look like, right? So we definitely want to reduce human error and also human fatigue. Like one of the techs used to tell me that they go and test from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Because that's when the venue would allow them to test, and then 6 a.m. they have to sit there and upload all the test results to a Dropbox, and also verify, prepare the report and whatnot. But he said, Subbu, you've now allowed us to have a life and go to sleep when we go after the day is done, because they just have to press the sync button and everything gets uploaded to the cloud and is automatically verified. So human error we want to try to reduce, and we can do automation, but the automation at this level has to be scalable and has to be abstract, in the sense it has to be technology independent, and we don't want to only automate testing or specific siloed processes. We want to automate the entire process from end to end. So that's the view that we should all take. And today's technology is pretty fascinating on what all you can do. And this automation should be user-friendly, should not depend on instruments, and should be very field-centric, because people often, have wonderful dashboards on the cloud and whatnot, but the field piece of it, the field usability piece of it, gets ignored. And we also definitely want to improve efficiency. So again, going back to automation on the cloud, everything has to be high performance. You want, if you do automation, that shouldn't slow down the users more than they are today. You need real-time visibility. Training is very important. We should be easily be able to train on new technologies that come. And often we need a pathway for collaboration, right? For where the field techs are able to collaborate with the subject matter experts in through a cloud, for example. So that's pretty important. And I cannot emphasize the importance of data. So we are in the digital transformation industry 4.0 in 2021. So it behooves us as an industry to make everything electronic. Distributing PDF documents is good, but at the same time, how do you enforce this is very important. We need to figure out a way to reduce site visits. And I want to democratize the data. What does that mean? Is that everybody should have access to the data. If the field tech is submitting the data, the CM, PM, VPs, all of them should be able to see it in a way that they need to see it. Like a PM, a VP, for example, needs to say, where are all my projects, right? So, and that should be readily available on a cloud-based mechanism. And one thing I really request of the industry is to think of all API accesses to all the data across platforms, as opposed to still exchanging data through spreadsheets and PDF documents. So, given 2021, please, the solution space looks like with the cloud and mobile solutions, and so we have the most powerful instrument in our hands today, right? With the power of with the power of the phones. I would say if Tim Cook would put a 4310 connector on an iPhone 13, I would take it and put all my instrument automation on that iPhone. So that's sort of what we can do with the power of the instruments that we have today. And so that's important for us to recognize that and say that the solutions that are leading to this would have to be based on mobile and cloud-based apps. And these apps cannot require full IT personnel to be able to manage, be very easily customizable and usable, right? So that's what the solution space looks like. So having dealt with some of these problems in my previous ventures, we came up with what we do at ECSite. So just as an introduction to ECSite, we are a software company located here in Silicon Valley in California. What we do with our software is we collect highly technical data. When I say highly technical data, the app itself is there's a mobile app and a cloud app. They both are RF aware or fiber aware or whatever the context aware. So all of that is all built into the app itself. So that's what is important about highly technical data collection, while you can still do all the project management features, so which will definitely help with your builds as such, right? So how does it work? So the first thing that you do, and what we need to get started, for example, is that we need a design. Typically, most people use IBWave, but we also take Excel inputs. We need your test plan and your mock templates, right? Or if you have a method of procedure, we take that, we digitize it and push it onto the cloud. And then you use a field app. The field app only needs connectivity to talk to the cloud once to pull the data, and then after that it can be completely unconnected and works in complete offline mode. It can be a standard phone or a tablet based on what you are already using, and the app is then used for testing different things and also collecting build data as such, right? So that's what you'll see, that we have features like project tracking, install tracking, bill of materials, and you can do all kinds of photos and stuff like that. And there's a fantastic dashboard that's available to you for you to be able to see. And once you're done with all of the field work, you press the sync button, everything goes to the cloud, and you will get your closeout packages. And the closeout packages are, again, is one click. Generate all your deliverables in one click. Whatever you want, it's customizable to what each carrier wants. So even if you're doing one project for multiple carriers at a site or a node or a macro site, we can spit out multiple closeout packages all in one click. So everything is centralized around the cloud and the mobile app, right? And just walking through the various phases of DaaS. I'm not going to go through too much on the slide itself, but you have planning phase, they do design phase, pre-construction, construction, testing, there's commissioning, and then final closeout. ECSite offers automation solutions in all of these phases at different levels. Our core is definitely test automation, but we've built all the elements for accelerating DAS builds around our test automation core. Okay, and just to in terms of what all we've done, we've done work with all of these customers in the recent past, and all of their mock templates and test plans, they've all been already automated and pushed onto our cloud. So if you come and ask for a site to be done for mobility, then that's immediately available. Okay, and in terms of what we've done, DAS projects just in 2020, while we still were affected by COVID, there was a lot of activity that was happening. We had about 61 sites, 4.8 million miles of coax was tested using our app, and that's our footprint. This was about the 24 last 2 years. That's our footprint of DAS projects. Our customers are typically 3POs, integrators, and general contractors. And while we do things for DAS, we also do the same principles apply for small cells as well. So we have over 1,000 nodes that we did last year across the country, and through AFL, we're now moving into Canada as well. Okay, so what happens? How is it advantageous, right? So through our platform, there's definitely increased accuracy. You can definitely reduce repeated site visits or remobilizing your crew to have to go back to do any missing photos or installs or right. And you'll get real-time visibility. Daily construction progresses, for example, is visible. And your closeout can, while you're in the field, for example, you can click the closeout button and see whether there's a "Am I ready for COP" button on our portal that tells you whether you're ready for closeout according to what the customer wants. So just from a summary perspective, ECSite is from a small site to a large site. We save anywhere from 60 hours to 500 hours per site. So that's definitely not only time savings, it's money savings, and a lot of headache is also gone, having to deal with a lot of these post-construction issues that you'll have to deal with. Okay, and we've done a lot of work on in-building in venues, small cells. We've done macro PIM mitigation that most of you are familiar with. Public safety, where you have to do grid testing, new site builds for macros, and then factory automation, where now today for DAS projects, a lot of people order fiber jumpers and coax jumpers, and if they want to really see whether those were tested well, there's a couple of our partners who use our app to test them in the factory, and you'll be able to see the results of them by just scanning the barcode on the cable itself to see where they were made and what are the test results from those as well. And so we're now also pushing this into factory automation for equipment as well, so that there's equipment testing. And if you want to see all the results for closeouts, that can all be pulled automatically into our cloud. Okay, so some other slides to show. So last 18 months, there's about 400 unique instruments. Predominantly, you can see that Andritsu and Kalis had a big market share, but you can see the others also starting to play a very active role recently, right? So we automate several instruments. It takes about a couple of weeks for us to automate. If you don't see some of the instruments in here, because our customers haven't requested those instruments for their use in the DAS projects, right? So that's the reason why you don't see them. And you can see that with our app, what happens is, every test result is geolocated, every test is timestamped, and is instrument agnostic as well, right? And in terms of instruments we support, just a sample of instruments, all the popular instruments that we support. The Kalis IVA is a popular instrument for field use in DAS projects that we've seen. So all your sweep testing can be done with those. your PIM testing, again, the 3 different instruments that are available out there. So we support all of them. CW testing, downlink, uplink testing. So that's again, we use different instruments for that. We also started to do some 5G millimeter wave testing in the 28 gig band and 39 gig bands with the Field Fox from ECSite. So that's also something that we've been doing. Right, and then switching over to the fiber side, we also do different levels of automation for different instruments with AFL, VX, and Android. So you get the native experience with Xflow and Fluke. It's a cloud-based, our cloud talking to their cloud experience, but we also do OTDR tests as well through our app and portal. And we integrate accessories like there's a laser distance meter. The usefulness of the laser distance meter, for example, is if you point to an antenna and if you know the EIRP from that antenna, then we will be able to calculate the path loss and do pass-fail for CW testing or walk tests and stuff like that automatically. So that's a level of integration that we have. Any labels you need to print from within our app. Again, all the cable names, everything gets loaded from IBWave or your Excel spreadsheets. So you don't have to worry about what the technician would label the traces as, because everything will be done through our app. And 360 cameras, I'll show you antenna alignment tools for macros as well, right? And in terms of project management and construction management, which David will also talk about, which he really likes, is we have dashboards for install tracker through our app, bill of materials, and all the photos. And there's 360 photos also, right? So if you go to a floor plan while you're walking for a design, I'm going to click on this. And so this is some of the 360 pictures for during walking. So I'm going to load that picture. And if you see this, you can see a full 360-degree picture that you can take, right? And the 360 camera, if you can look at my camera, it looks like this is a fisheye lens camera that you can buy off the shelf and you can use, look at the top, look at the bottom, right? So you can look at all of this. So that's the usefulness of the 360 camera itself, right? And you on the cloud, you get daily reports. There's project reports, there's closeout packages that are carrier specific, all your photos, trackers, all kinds of things that are available on the cloud. And we have API access to talk to and from the cloud into other systems, like we integrate with many different systems. Okay, so with that, I'm going to switch to the demo. Actually, so while I'm switching to the demo, there's one more poll. I'm going to launch that poll. Again, I could only have 5 questions, so I grouped them. Okay. And thank you everybody who's voting. Right, I've at least gotten within the 30 seconds. We've gotten at least every time 60 to 70% of the people who voted. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. Okay, so in terms of the demo setup, I just want to explain how this works. I have an Anritsu SiteMaster 332E and connected to a Wi-Fi dongle. And like I said, the app talks to the instrument through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and we control everything on the instrument. You'll see that. And I have a jumper cable connected to a 50-foot LMR with an open short load termination. And once the app is done with everything, it'll push everything to the cloud through the internet connection that it has. So that is on the suite side. And then I also have a short fiber demo where we have an Anritsu, again, OTDR MT9085. And the reason I have these Anritsus is that you can see the screen on those while you're doing the testing. So it shows for a nice demo. And then we have the Wi-Fi dongle. with a 50-meter launch reel and a 100-meter single mode fiber connected to this. So that's sort of the setup for the demo. So with that, let me switch to the demo. Here, if you can see this, right? So this is a demo that I will show. So here is the setup, like I talked about. Is an Anritsu with a 50-foot LMR cable and a tablet, and I've mirrored the tablet screen here, and I've mirrored the Anritsu screen here so that you can see that, right? So you enter the site ID, username and password, and you log in into the app. So I'm going to click on play. So that so you click on that, and then it's now going, when it logs in, what it's going to do is going to download everything from the cloud into the app. So now you can take the tablet to the field once it's 100% downloaded, right? So once you download, you'll see all the features, whether you're doing photos, sweep test, PIM test, install tracker. So all of that is available through the same access mechanism on the tablet. And multiple people can operate this tablet at the same time. So I'm going to do a segment sweep test. All the floor information, for example, is already loaded from IBWave. Nobody has to do any of these manual, or it can also be, like I said, can also be from a spreadsheet as well, right? So this is Beverly Hilton floor 2, for example. So, and let's say I go inside that, you'll see there are cables that are already labeled there, and they're all green in color because all the tests have been complete for those cables. These cable labels came again from IBWave, automatically loaded. And if I click on that and look at the sweep test, you can see that this is the MOP for that project. Return loss, distance to fault, and insertion loss tests, or cable loss tests essentially. And each one of them has one test that's done. And if I go click on one of those tests, it says who did the test and the parameters of the test. And if I click on the details of the test, it downloads that as well. You can see the screenshot that was captured, right? So this is essentially what it looks like when a test was done. But now we're going to actually do a test and go to floor 7, pick cable 315, which is black, which means the test is not done. And I'm going to take a sweep test. And you can see again, no tests are done here. So let's just do a return loss test itself. And here you can see, just pausing here on the screen, all the MOP parameters that come from the cloud is already preloaded and uneditable by the tech in the field. So this is all, this is where I said everything has to be digitized and made electronic on the cloud and pushed to the tablet. You can see the limits are also set here. And you'll see what happens on both these screens here as we click the next button. It's now talking through this dongle, which is a Wi-Fi dongle. And you can see that it was 700 to 960. That's changing now to 698 to 960. And it also tells the tech, hey, this is a sweep with a load. Make sure you connect a load, right? So we connect the load. You can see that there. And then I'm going to click on continue. So now it's actually going to go perform the test on the instrument itself. And you can see things are changing. It's setting the limit lines. It says it's fast, right? And you can see the markers also being automatically set. And now it's going to pull all that data back to the tablet through this Wi-Fi connection locally, right? So this is, you can see that it pulled that data. It's at 25.54 dB here. And also the same screenshot is being captured. I can also, if I need to alert the RF engineer, I can enter comments. I can take a picture that is specific to a test. For example, a PIM test is often required to do a DTP, distance to PIM, and also take a picture of the environment. So you can take a picture that is specific to the test and click done. And then if you, so here what we're doing is that we're going to go run a test to do distance to fault, and says the termination is a short. So we're changing the termination to a short here, and you'll see what happens with the test. So we change that. You can see what's happening on the instrument, and we change the termination to a short, right? So there's your short, and then I'm going to click on the DTF, and the only thing you can edit in the field because most of the time IB wave lengths are not correct. So we go and edit we're allowed to edit the length in the field, so you can see the right peaks. And so if we run that test itself, you'll see what happens there. Again, the frequencies, or the other important thing that I want to say is that the propagation velocity and the cable losses, they're all, we know all the cables in the field that are being used in the field are based on the IB wave design, and we pull those parameters in the cloud and push it to the app, so that the technician does not have to go here and use the DTF aid to pick the cable. And more often, what we're also seeing is that, for example, Untitled uses a 3-point method to calculate the insertion loss. And when you go to 3.5 gig or CBRS or LAA, those calculations don't apply because it's not a linear curve. So there are some challenges with that. But on our side, we'll be able to take care of that because we apply specific calculations that are specific to that frequency, right? So we enter the length. There's a 50-foot cable, so I'm going to click on next, and you'll see that it's setting the settings. It's and then again, it says it's a short. So that was a warning that it was giving, that make sure you use a short, and then you can see that the marker is at 52 feet, and there you go, right? So it pulled that test result as well. Right, so now I have a second test result, and if I go up, it still says black because all the tests are not complete. And then now I want to see what have I done today, right? So as a technician, so I touched cable 315, and I have done a DTF to a short and a return loss to a load. The DTF is usually not a pass-fail test, and the return loss is a pass test. So you see that what they have done. So that is what the technician has done for that day. And then you can also look at what is the status of my site. So you can see all the segments there and what tests are passing. So this checkbox will tell you what might be left before you leave the site itself. Right? So you know this right then and there. So you don't have to worry about, so for example, the first row has empty, which means that things are not complete. Now you press the sync button. So until now, we operated without any connectivity to the cloud. So at this point, you switch to your hotel Wi-Fi or your hotspot, and then you press the sync button, and then you enter comments for sync, for example, and you upload. So everything then gets uploaded to the cloud. So if you already have a live connection, it will automatically sync in the background. So you don't need to sync. Now I'm going to go switch over to a cloud, or portal as we call it, and then look at the test results there. How are we doing on time? Yeah. So if I go to the test results, you can see a good dashboard map of all the sites and their status. And I can go here and look at the demo site. It says 83% coax testing is complete. And you'll see pie charts which shows what's passing, what's failing, what's not done. So all of that you'll be able to see here. And then if I click on sweep results and look at the segment sweep, which is that we just did, and then it brings up the test, the cable 315 that we just did. And if you click on the pass-fail results itself, then it brings up the screenshot, and also says it was done with an Untitled. The comments are there, all the parameters are there, and also the location is also captured, saying where the test was done, right? And then I can press on the COP, which is the closeout package, and say generate the COP, and that generates all of your deliverables, right? I know this is going a little bit fast, but just to at least go show you all the overall features. So there, and then let's also look at the closeout photos. All the photo requirements are preloaded from IB Wave in terms of components. Same thing with installation as well. And if you look at this, these are the photos that need to be taken. And here is the photos that they took with our app. And you can see that all the labels they match. So you don't have to sit there and label all these pictures. Is automatically labeled for you, and a zip file is generated for a closeout perspective. And here's the install dashboard. The install dashboard says, how many components were there, how much we have done, what progress have we made. So all of that you'll be able to see here on what date as well, right? So all this is available to you. And then PIM results, again, in the same way, if I look at the system PIM, right? So you can see at what frequencies where they were done, and then I can click on that, and that brings up the PIM result. Again, this is another thing, the sweep result I was showing you with the Anritsu, the PIM result is with the KLIS. So regardless of what instrument you use, you'll have a unified view of the test results, right? So that way you don't have to mandate, thou shall use only this test instrument. And then switching over to the fiber demo, again, I have an Anritsu OTDR here, and I'm going to click on Go. So it's going to do a fiber test, and I'm going to pick on one of those AFL demo, which has 12 strands. We have done some tests here already that you can see at 1310 and 1550. There's also information about the fiber itself we can store. And then let's say we run test. So all the 1310 and 1550 we're going to choose. The thresholds are set up here, pulse widths, all of that comes from the cloud. Based on the fiber type, we have the backscatter coefficients all loaded. And if you run continue, you can see the screen here and here. Again, we're mirroring the screen here. So you can see that there's a 50-foot here and 100 meters and 50 meters. It sets that, calculates the ORL on the instrument itself. It pulls all of those test records. You can see that it did for 1310 and 1550. And the test results are there, right? And then again, similar to the previous one, we sync. I'm going to just accelerate here, right, and say done, right? So if you go back and then you can see all the test results, 100 meters, and the losses for each wavelength on that. And then I can press the sync. Everything goes to the cloud. I'm going to accelerate that. Right, and then you go to the cloud, you'll be able to look at the trace data. Right, again, we can click on that to see what sites are active. And then we go to the fiber demo. And the portal itself is very, very fast in terms of being very reactive. Right, and then you can see what happens here. It pulls up the test results. You can, if you do multiple tests, you'll be able to see them. The SOR files are also stored. The event tables are stored, so you'll be able to again, generate the closeout package as we did earlier. Okay, and what you can see, the location, like I said, you can zoom in. You can generate the closeout package. And it'll generate all of your deliverables that you need. And I also want to show you from our lab. These are the kind of instruments that are there in our lab. There's some more that are out as well. But so we work with all these instruments all day to automate them and make sure that we haven't broken anything as such, right? So you can see sweep gears, PIM gears, fiber gears as well, and we're working on some splicers as well. Okay, so with that, I end the demo, and now over to David.
Well, good. Well, thank you. I know we're getting low on time. I just wanted to give the perspective from a customer, from someone that has used this product in our organization. And I speak for our organization here, not just myself, but we were introduced to Subbu a couple of years ago through a project we did for Crown Castle. And, just like any new product, when you see the technology and when you see all that's available, you're impressed by it, but there's a little fear factor there, getting used to it. What is it going to be for us? Is it really going to help us? Things like that. And then trying to get that over to the folks in the field that are actually doing the work. You get answers like, well, I've been doing it this way for so long. Why do I need to change? What is going on? So I can tell you that as soon as the actual work happened, everyone across the board were instant believers. And why is that? Well, if you think about the size of what we have to accomplish sometimes, just with some of these projects that I threw down there, AT&T Stadium, for example, this past year, probably the largest project we had ever tried to accomplish as a company, just the thousands of sweeps and fiber testing and things that had to happen with a project of this size, being able to trust a field team to be able to handle that, to be able to have the size and scope of it and be able to accurately do it. It's very, very tough to do, very daunting task. So ECSite gives you that instant ability to be able to track, to be able to ensure accuracy, ensure efficiency. So those are all the things that you probably have thought of when Subbu did his talk today. And I wrote a couple of things down while he spoke that reminded me of our relationship and how things have moved. And we started in the testing phase. That's where the core business is. We thought, okay, this can really help us be better, and it is. Just from not having to trust that the technician knows how to set the machine up properly, or that they understand fully the parameters or the frequencies or things that you're asking. So all that's handled. It all comes to the app. It's all taken care of into the device, and the technician simply has to follow the process. It lets the technician know if it passed or failed. It's synced back to the cloud. Someone remotely can look at it immediately, and they can help move through progress. So what does that mean? Well, as we move through our relationship with ECSite, that means less truck rolls. That means more efficiency the first time. You get an accurate result the first time. You get to identify a problem right there before you move on to the other side of the stadium or to another site and have to come back. So those are some of the biggest things we noticed right off the bat. When we moved into more complex projects that may have a different element, one of the things that really impressed me about ECSite was the ability to scale. For example, when we did a project at the Superdome where we had to do cores under seats, we had to do this evolution where we had to take the seat up multiple times. We had to register the core, we had to send it off to be analyzed and approved, and then we had to come back and do it again. Well, all this had to be tracked. And we called up Subbu and said, can you add this to the app? Probably 2 hours later, we had it on our phone. Things like that are very impressive, that you've got the ability to make those kind of changes that quickly to something that's so user-friendly. So as our technicians began to use this more and more, we thought, how can we use this for project management? Well, there's a great module, as Subbu has outlined, to be able to track the overall progress of the project. Inventory, being able to label, all of those things that he mentioned. How can we take that and have more of a remote presence to be able to look at quality through pictures, through video, through the requirements that some of our customers have, like VQR analysis. All of that is possible in the exact same app, in the exact same feel that the technician is already used to. So it's not another device or another program or another training class. It's all right there together in the same format. So all of that led us to, just moving into the last phase, this FBI Tampa field office that I mentioned. It looks like a small project. Yeah, it wasn't that large, but we weren't allowed to take the devices inside. So how do you use something like this without having the device, which is essential to it? Well, again, glowing success, because even though we had that minimal delay of being able to grab that device, we were still able to follow the same process, the same testing parameters, and the same results. So it's an outstanding product. It's scalable with you. The ease of being able to use it is the real thing that you think about. How does the technician like it? How do they use it? Do they see it as an advantage? Well, just from the fact of not having to go to the hotel room, type in all of the tests they did that day, prepare them, and send them later. It's all done while they're testing on the app. So it frees them up. So from a standpoint of the field, the technician and the manager, complete success. So Subbu, I just wanted to give that testimonial from real users.
Yeah, thank you, David. That was very, very grateful for making those statements. Appreciate it. We really enjoyed working with your team on this, and that's more than me. It's my team that does most of the work here. So I shout out to them as well, who respond to our customer first and do things very quickly for all of our customers, right? And one thing I want to say is that there's no small project, no big project. We've dealt with 10 cables. We've dealt with thousands of cables. So all of them have efficiencies that could be improved and all in one place. So we're happy to support you. So with that, we can switch to, thank you, David. Because we talked a lot about instruments and coax testing, we prepared an instrument guide. So you're welcome to go to our website and download that. We'll also be with your emails. We'll send you notifications if you want to download that yourself. There's a lot of information about processes also in here, so please feel free to download and read this. And there's a few series of emails that are coming out on our learning, right? We'd like to give back to where we learn from on all the data that we collect, so we will definitely be publishing those for all of you to understand. So our apps are now available in the App Store. Definitely the iPhone apps are available immediately. The Google Play, March 15th, we should have them on Google Play, but most of the features are available on the Android phones. So if you need the app for a demo or trial, just reach out to us and we'll send you an app file that you can install on your device and go at it until March 15th, after which you should be able to download everything on the app itself, right? So we're getting very close to time. Feel free to ask any questions on the chat, and Tom will moderate those and send them our way.
So yeah, thank you, Subbu. While we look for some questions to come in, I have a couple that I'm sure many in the audience are thinking through. The first is, if I have a project, and to your point, not too big, not too small, doesn't matter, how would I get started with yourself, with the team at ECSite? What would be the process, and what would you need, or what would I need to commence utilization of your tool?
Right. So typically, thanks, Tom. Thanks for that question. So typically, what we get from our customers is an IBWave file or a design file. Sometimes there's just Excel spreadsheets, essentially a cable routing report. So that's the first input, and then a test plan. If we have the design, that's better, because then we're able to infer what might be the test plan, because sometimes the test plans are very, very vague. So the design plan is very useful, but if you have a test plan, and sometimes they work for a carrier or a 3PO or a 3PO itself, and they have a MOP. So that's the other thing that we would need. So essentially, we need a design file, a test plan, and a procedure if there's one that is required, and closeout requirements, right? So, yeah, does that answer the question?
Thank you, Subbu. I think it does, yeah. A follow-up to that is, what happens if there's changes or red lines during the testing process? What accommodations can be made, or how does the app handle those changes?
Right. So we have like 1Z, 2Z changes the app can handle by itself. But like I said, 30% of the designs that we've seen have had substantial changes even during the implementation phase. So in those cases, again, they would give us the red lines, and we'll be able to diff between the previous version and the next version, and be able to accommodate that in the app. But sometimes what we, this has also forced people to be very disciplined about their IBWave, make sure that the design files capture all the information with the changes. So then we're in lockstep with them, and we're able to handle red lines very graciously, I would say. But there has been times when we have pulled our hair as well, as to, because they've skipped 2 revisions of IBWave, and the design has changed too much, and we've had to deal with that. But we've come through all of those very well. One thing I would also add, Tom, is that in terms of turnaround time, if you give us the IBWave and the test plan, the app will be ready, by the next day. So that's how fast it can be done. And like I said, most people, big or small, you don't need any IT support to be able to deal with our platform, because we manage all of that for you.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess in the less than 1 minute left, probably the biggest question everyone wants to know is pricing. How do you handle pricing? Can I find it on your website? Do I have to send you an email? How is pricing handled? Yeah.
So the pricing model is actually a pretty flexible pricing model. It scales with the projects. The more projects you have, and it can be very project specific as well, because not all projects are equal. So it's typically a per project per site model. But we also have a platform license, for example. And if you get a full platform license, then we get all the other features that go with it on the cloud side, with all the dashboards and alerts and many other things that get automatically pushed. And so if you do get the platform license, then the per project also becomes at a much discounted rate for you at scale. So that's sort of the pricing model that we have on the DaaS side. There's no upfront costs. right? So that's something that I also want to say. It's all comes down to the size of the project.
So if I heard you correctly, it's scalable based upon the project, and there's some additional benefits or discounting potentially available to me with a license model.
With the license model. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anything else from the audience? For those who are still remaining, it is the top of the hour.
And while that's coming in, I just wanted to thank Subbu again and thank all of the attendees for coming in and taking a listen. And this recording will be sent to you with your email along with how to get a hold of Subbu and me if you need to as well. So officially, I want to say everybody have a great afternoon and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Subbu.
Thank you, Tom.